but I want to know about the tornadoes and the floods down there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I got a daughter live there, and she done got used to the termites. I mean, not just the termites, but the tarantulas, those big spiders.
Yeah. Well, that's not something hopefully we have to get used to around here.
Yeah, we don't have none here, but we got a few other things that's not pleasant.
Are you talking about the gnats, Councilman Poole? Are you talking about the gnats during the summertime?
Yellow flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily I don't have it in my agenda. We have a plan blocked out for the rest of the campaign through April 30th. I've got kind of content ideas ready to go. We're not doing any exposés on gnats.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's really Rocky Horn.
Yeah. So, and in fact, I'll tell you here in a minute after I get done with this, I'm actually going to show you a little bit about the thought process behind the stories that we do choose. Because we put a lot of thought into not only what stories to tell, because there are a lot of good stories that we don't have time to tell or don't want to tell, because they're not relevant to those people. And then it'll help you understand kind of what we're hitting at, what we think people are looking for when we look. The second was create additional audiences for other cities. So we started with 2 primary cities. You'll see here a list: Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Des Moines, Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. Most, if not all, of these cities currently have snow. The reason why we've chosen these cities is because our goal is to put together specific ad copy for these cold weather cities. Right? We already have many of the elements that they don't have in the summertime, all the things I recently mentioned. But the one specific thing that we don't have that they do have right now is cold weather icy roads. We actually have reserved a significant amount of our ad and have left it unspent. Almost, I'd say, we've only spent about 65% of our ad budget so that we could be ready to really hit these cities hard with targeted messaging when the weather gets awful. And having grown up in Iowa, the weather gets truly awful up there. Okay? So that's one additional thing that we've done, and we were able to finally roll that out as weather really started to take a nosedive recently. Long-form content and optimized subject matter. I completed these 2. And this goes to what I mentioned to you, Councilman Poole. There are 3 basic stories that we tell every week. We want to talk about economic vibrancy. That is, we want to show and demonstrate how Edenton is an economically vibrant community. You'll see every single week I mention thriving downtown. There's a reason why I do that. Because we want people to realize that when they move to Edenton, there's a place to make money and there's places to spend money. It's one of the fundamental things people look for in a place to live. The second thing is a fulfilling community. People want to know that they will like where they live and who they live around. So we tell stories about people who like where they live and who they live around. The third one is we want to actually tell stories of people who are moving to town. The point of that is simple. If we want somebody to make a decision, we want to tell stories about people who have made that decision and actually enjoy that decision. The blog last week was maybe my favorite one, not only because Jeannie was an incredible interview and because she has an incredible story, but because it actually tapped into all 3 of these things at once. It was a grand slam for us. We talked about somebody building a new business in the community. We talked about somebody who fell in love with the town. And we talked about how the town actually helped her up in a difficult time. And we talked about how she chose to live here in 60 minutes and has never looked back. We don't just tell feel-good stories. I think that's important for us to realize. We tell stories that actually mimic the decision-making process that people are making before they move here. And then we did a major website update. All right, so we've updated every page of the website. We've added quotes from residents, specifically of residents who we've interviewed for the blog. We've increased internal connections between the pages. That's simply hyperlinks from one page to another. We've added different and new pictures throughout the website, and then updated the links page, and then built out the calendar page, because the idea here is that Edenton's website, the I Love Edenton website, has a different mission than every other website in the city's ecosystem. The town of Edenton has a specific website for a specific mission. Visit Edenton has a website for a specific mission, and our goal is not to duplicate any of that work, but to find ways to take the website that we're driving traffic to and spread it out throughout that ecosystem. And the way we do that is to get them engaged, to get them clicking around in that website as much as possible, and throughout that website actually send them on to other pages. So for example, there's some things that are missing from our site on purpose. We don't have a lot about tourism because there's already a wonderful website that has all the tourist information they need. Why do we need to duplicate that? We can send them to that website and they can get all that information there, and so on and so forth. That's essentially my update for the Edenton campaign. I'd ask if you guys have any questions or would like any clarification on anything.
have you heard from any of the realtors that have said, hey, I read your blog, and that's one reason I'm here, I want to see more about Edenton?
I have interacted with multiple people who are not only interested in visiting, but have actually asked about moving to realtors. They've actually asked to be connected to realtors
Okay.
and things like that. Anne Marie actually ran into somebody downtown one time, I don't want to speak for you, who had read the blog. I think they lived in Charlotte or Raleigh, had never been to Edenton, and correct me if I'm messing with the details of the story, but they visited just because they saw. Is that right? So we are achieving that. What we know is this is a long game, right? This is not a snap decision. We're not asking somebody to buy a pair of sneakers. We're asking them to uproot their entire life and move. But that's why we're at a 12-month plan, and we're relentlessly delivering valuable content.
Could I make an observation? I usually ask people when they come through, when I volunteer over at the Bob House, which is the Welcome Center, why are they coming through and so forth. And many of them say they saw this and they're on their way to Florida or they're on their way to Charleston, and they thought they would come through. So they start looking by coming in and visiting as they're coming through and looking around at different places. And I'm very happy to say that a lot of them go down into the Outer Banks and are now coming right on up 94 and 64 and up to 32 and coming over here. And are actually talking about moving from down there to up here. So I thought that was interesting. But I thought I would share that because I've been hearing that now for about 6 or 8 months.
That is not a plan. Thank you, sir.
My concern is, I think the idea is good, how to get there. But it seems like every time someone gets a good idea that will help people, and they put it on the website, those websites have the person's name, their address, their telephone number, and they also have their email address. Once you log that in on the website, and there's other folks out there trying to get these same names, so they can call them and try to entice them with try this, you'll win something.
Yep. So you're worried about security?
Yes,
Yeah.
the security is bad because I get phone calls every day from somebody everywhere, California, wherever. Somebody trying to sell something, and it's really, it's a nuisance, really.
Yep.
But you can't stop it.
So if I could speak to how we keep people's data and information secure, we do two things. One, we only collect their email. That's the only piece of data, personalized data that we collect. I know typically their first name and their email. I don't know anything else about them. So the only way I can stay in contact with it is via email. And all of that information is stored on an encrypted third-party platform designed to keep that information safe. It's not in some file folder at home or just on my computer. We actually host all of that information on data encrypted sites to keep that protected and safe. The other thing is when we track website visits and we track where they go with heat maps and things like that, but we only collect what we call encrypted third-party data. So for example, I know that people from 47 states have visited our I Love Edenton website. I know when I checked earlier, there was 14 people from Texas that had visited our website and hundreds that had visited from Virginia. But I have no ability to identify individual users beyond general location data like that. So we keep them safe on two levels. One, by not collecting information that they don't give us access to collect. They don't give us specific permission to collect, and only collecting data that we know we can keep safe with companies whose whole job is to keep that data safe from all of that other stuff. Because you're right, when it comes to the internet, there is no shortage of bad actors out there who want to steal that data.
Yeah, I would just, while you're talking, scan back through all those articles you wrote. I think they're really powerful and good. And I mean, I'll never move, but if I was going to move, something like that would be a tool to get me somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, and the key here is that we want to track people through the decision-making process, right? When we go back to these three ideas, and I don't want to waste your time, so if I need to step down, please let me know. These are the three basic questions. Can I make and spend money? Am I going to feel good about my community? And are other people making the same decision that I'm considering making? And that goes no matter what you're trying to buy or sell. This is just basic sales. And so we're simply telling them a compelling story that is 100% true and accurate every single time.
Tyler, is there anything that we can do to help the campaign? I mean, should we be sharing the blog? Should we be emailing the blog to different partners, or?
The simple answer is as many people who can see it as possible. I mean, the more widely it spreads, the better. There is sort of an art to this. What we, part of what we want to do is we want to get them into the ecosystem and be regularly interacting with us, which is pretty much what they're doing. Other people, for example, the Visit Edenton site has a whole host of people who I'm not talking to on a regular basis. So when she cross-posts or shares, and Nancy cross-posts or shares with what I've written, it does everybody good. One of the things that we're looking at doing, so we're entering into Christmas time, we've got a number of articles coming out about all of the events coming out around Edenton. This is going to be a perfect time to link to all of the Edenton social media page and all of these other pages that we've done a little bit, but we can hype up that activity now. The one thing this campaign doesn't have is a Facebook page, or we're not actively managing the Town of Edenton Facebook page. One or two posts, sharing posts that are relevant to people on the Facebook page is great, but at the same time, for example, the Facebook page is largely made up of people who are already in the area, so we don't want to blast them with things that are not particularly relevant to them. If they want to read, that's great. But we're doing more or less what it takes to reach and keep those people engaged. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Sure.
I would encourage you to write one on Kadish.
Okay.
Because I would want to move to the type of community that all comes together for the good of something like that.
That's going to be easy to do. And the reason why we have a long-term content plan is because it gives us flexibility to do what we want. So that's easy to do. Any other ideas or questions or issues?
I think we're good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
And just as a reminder, this whole project was launched based on the study that you all approved when Edenton was evaluated, strengths, weaknesses, what we could do differently than what we were doing, a year or so, going on 2 years ago now. So we now have this. We found we were underrepresented in the modern day world of communications, and Tyler's filled a big part of that gap for us, and doing a nice job. Thank you.
All right, Mayor, next on the committee meeting agenda is the ADA transition plan, and Saoirse's been working on that. At your October meeting, she presented you a draft of the plan and has been working to update that, and I think Saoirse's going to come to the podium and give you an update of the additional information that's been included and talk about next steps.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here this evening. So, like Anne Marie just said, I did present a draft that was almost entirely complete at our last council meeting. And since then, I've added an actual transition. So any of the facility upgrades that need to be made, those are now mapped out with how they need to be upgraded and in estimated years that they should be completed by. I've also separated that all into estimated costs and broken that down by fiscal year so that we can spread out the costs of becoming compliant and then also prioritize the facilities and the areas that are in most need, that have the most need for compliance. I have also received approval from Ms. Ashley Council with NCDOT, and so at this point our the ADA transition plan does meet all of the requirements that it needs to and will be ready to adopt at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you. Does anyone have questions?
I just want to say what a great job you
Yeah,
did.
it was great.
Really, I mean, this was a lot of hard work. And I love the way you prioritized everything. I love the way you defined the problem and defined how you're going to correct the problem, how much the problem's going to cost, and when we're going to pay for it.
Yep.
Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Sarah. All right, very good. Next item, please, ma'am.
The last item for the committee this evening is to review the terms of the proposed lease agreement for the office space on the second floor of Town Hall for Congressman Murphy. We had heard that the congressman during his campaign was interested in opening a field office in Edenton, and I don't think a congressman has ever had a field office in Edenton, so our ears really perked up. When he was elected, we reached out to the campaign, and he assured us that he was interested in a northeastern office. We asked what the expectations were in terms of rent, and he said that he had been offered free rental office space from other local governments, and he was hoping that we could find something for him here in Edenton. And so the county manager and I met with him and with Congressman Murphy and his legislative assistant, and we showed them the office above Town Hall, and it would meet all their needs. And but in order for you to lease that office at no rent, you have to declare that, you know, it is of no value to the town, that it's okay to lease it for no rent, and then what will you receive in exchange for that? And the incredible accessibility that our citizens will have to a full-time staff person who will be up there to be able to help with citizens with all sorts of issues with different federal agencies.
Would the staff person be there continuously?
That's the plan is they're, you know, for a full-time person. But they wanted to be in downtown. They were thrilled to have the elevator to be ADA accessible, Saoirse. So Hood advised that we needed to advertise the lease and that advertise your intent to adopt a resolution to approve the lease at the December 10th meeting, which we've placed that ad. And the congressman is hopeful that he would like to hold an open house the December 14th, that Saturday. It's actually the weekend of the candlelight tour, so people can meet him and know where the office is. So Mayor, those are all the items that the committee has, and the two action items would be the ADA transition plan and the lease agreement that we would ask to move forward to the December meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, the ADA revised plan that Saoirse just addressed, the chair would entertain a motion that we go ahead and with those additions and so forth, adopt the plan as it's now
So
written.
moved, Mayor.
At the December 10th
At
meeting.
at the
Yeah.
at the December 10th meeting, that's right.
Second.
We're in the, okay.
Thank you.
And the lease agreement,
So moved.
all right,
Second.
that goes forward to the 10th as well.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Such a good thing.
Okay.
Okay. All right, very good. Next, we will hear from our Public Works Committee chaired by Councilman Stallings, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We only have one item on the agenda tonight, and seriously, your family gets to see you really at work tonight, right? And this is on the abandoned and derelict vessels. All this took place because of this vessel that's down at the marina that's partially submerged now, and we've been working on that, trying to get things taken care of that, but it does not qualify as an abandoned or derelict vessel. And Saoirse and Anne Marie went to a meeting on that, and Saoirse, if you will, I'm gonna let you take the reins on this.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. So like Councilman Stallings just said, Cord, Palmer, Anne Marie, and I all attended a workshop for abandoned and derelict vessels in Washington a couple weeks ago. And after that, Cord Palmer did reach out to the Coast Guard to see if they could inspect the vehicle and see that if after the if after the water was pumped out of the vessel, it would actually be seaworthy enough to move out of here. Unfortunately, the Coast Guard can't inspect it because it isn't in a public waterway, but we have reached out to a private contractor who is going to inspect that and see how seaworthy it is and if it is something that could be moved. We would also, at that workshop, we became aware of some ordinances that a town can actually adopt, put towards abandoned and derelict vessels. And so at this point, we're asking for the council's approval for us to move forward in pursuing such an ordinance for Edenton. And this would involve getting local legislators to approve a bill, a local bill, to give us the authority to adopt this ordinance. And then once we are given that authority, once that bill has been adopted, Edenton, we would work with our town attorney to review a local ordinance that Beaufort has adopted, and they've seen a lot of success with, and we would then be able to adopt an ordinance as well. And this is really important because this is mostly for future and kind of preventative action. If there was a hurricane or if there was a hurricane that did come up and Edenton encountered a lot of abandoned and derelict vessels, we would not be able to get their removal reimbursed without a local ordinance. So that's why we'd like to move forward with pursuing a local ordinance.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions of Saoirse on this?
Let me tell you something. Is it possible that the owner of this boat be responsible for removing it if they had to get a crane or something? Cut
He
it
is
to pieces and
responsible
get it out of the
for it.
water?
Yeah.
And I think Anne-Marie has been working with him on this.
We've been working with the owner of the marina, who has been working with the boat owner, and the boat does not meet, it is not considered abandoned and derelict because, the boat owner is actively working to try and get the boat seaworthy. He's paying rent, he pays monthly slip rental, so it doesn't meet any of, it's not in the navigable waters, so it doesn't meet any of those requirements. However, if something were to change, we want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row so that we could take action. But unfortunately, what we learned at the workshop is that, and I'm not saying this person is going to do that, but a lot of people deliberately, if their boat is getting in a condition where it's not seaworthy, they abandon it. And it is a real problem for coastal communities. And that's why the state of North Carolina has, we're pretty sure they're going to appropriate about $1 million in grant money to help local governments move them. You are exactly right. Ultimately, the boat owner is responsible. But just like the mobile home, that you all agreed to demolish earlier, sometimes, government has to step in and protect the health and welfare of the public, and this abandoned derelict vessel ordinance is another tool that we will have to help protect the community.
Isn't Elizabeth City having some issues along that line?
Isn't this boat underwater?
It's on the bottom.
It's on the bottom.
Is it
It's
on
on
the
the bottom,
bottom?
but it's not underwater. It's on the bottom.
It's not floating.
It's not floating.
Yeah.
How much time is required by the government or the Marines or whoever before the water, a boat can be sunk in the water and they don't move it? How much time is required for them the owner has abandoned it? That thing's been in the
no, that showed up Hurricane Florence, so it's been about a little more than a year. But the proposed ordinance defines, I can't remember the exact amount of time that a vessel has to be in the water, no contact, with the property owner. I mean, there's a whole standard.
But in this particular position, the owner has not abandoned it. He's still paying rent at the marina, and he's working with Anne Marie and the town officials to get it floating so that he can move it, as I understand it. Is that correct?
I don't understand why paying rent is making an effort to move the boat.
Well, the ordinance talks about the town can only have authority to go, I mean, we don't have the authority to go in and take this boat now, because and that's one of the things that, one of the stipulations in the ordinance is that it is not, it has to be in navigable waters. It's not. It's tied to a dock. He's paying rent. I mean, there's a whole litany of things in the ordinance that define what is abandoned, and he does that. What is there does not meet the definition of.
We don't
the
have any
statutes.
definition. If you had Manio's ordinances, I read this, he would have flunked on at least half of the conditions that would declare that boat derelict. Vessel is listing, vessel is aground, vessel is in danger of breaking its mooring, vessel is sinking, vessel exterior is exposed to the elements, Any one of those.
But where is the vessel located?
In town waters or grounded on public land of the town of Manio.
I think that's the kicker. We would need to get
This is their local bill that they got passed by the legislature.
right.
I mean, waiting on an owner to me is about run its limit for my patience. I don't understand why, instead of talking to the guy who's renting the slip to him, why aren't we talking to the owner? But there's no pressure we can put on them because we don't have an ordinance, right? So it could sit there until we get an ordinance.
Well,
And we have to get a special bill to do
And you
it.
gotta
Yeah,
get that-
there-
you can only do that at the end of a legislative session, right?
I mean, we can ask Hood to look and see what authority we have now. You know, we had, I mean, even when the county looked at the ordinance, they backed off and said, you know what, based on where this vessel is located, he has permission from the marina operator. He's not declared it illegal or abandoned.
But the marina operator doesn't own the bottom of that creek, is what I'm saying. And that's where it is. You may have a rope running from there to the post, the
So what
mooring
you're saying,
post.
we're gonna have to get Senator Steinberg or Representative Goodwin involved in this?
We need to do that regardless of the situation at
But just look at how much
Edenton Marina.
conversation it's caused.
Yeah.
I mean,
One boat.
There's
Well, I
people about this thing being seaworthy. I've seen them try to pump it out twice. It's still on the bottom. Must be something wrong besides water raining in it.
Well, what we've been advised is that the size of the pumps that he had been using were not big enough. And so we had proposed that we would lease them pumps that we have that are larger, to help get rid of the water. But then, you know, you all said at a meeting recently where you didn't want that boat to get pumped out and then all of a sudden to start its way up the creek and get stuck there. You wanted it to be verified that the boat is seaworthy, so that's. And then at the same time, we are trying to get an idea from a local contractor as to, one, whether or not it's seaworthy, and if it's not, then what would be required to dismantle and remove.
So the local contractor's opinion can be used as leverage to get this thing
Mayor, we'll have to, talk with the town attorney to see if what authority we have, but we wanna make sure we know what the options are.
We had a similar situation with the tugboat, if y'all recall, and the only reason it got moved was because Paul Walker wanted it. I mean, it sat on the bottom over here. That example and this example, to me, tell you all, since I'll be parting ways, that we need an ordinance bad. Because when these things occur, we can't do anything.
Exactly.
And there's 2 times that it's occurred since I've been here. And like I say, a person took the boat and hauled it off and made it part of a restaurant in case of the tugboat, but this one won't be part of anything except addition to a landfill somewhere.
So I guess the answer now is we need to send it to full council, is that correct?
Well,
Or can we?
no, I
make
think
that-
send to full council authorization for us to work with, our legislators to try and get a local bill approved so that you could adopt an ordinance.
Can we do that tonight?
No, it's on a committee.
Okay. Sam, if it's all right with you and Reverend Poole, we'll send this to full council.
Yeah.
Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you, sir. All right. Wait a minute, lost my place. Okay. Final committee meeting tonight will be that of the Finance Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Dixon, please.
I think it'll be the shortest committee. So the first thing on is approval of private sale to mayor and Mayor Pro Tem of their iPads. Do you want to add
Sure.
anything to that?
Just, that their iPads have been used and not abused, but worn out, and in the past, you have offered, to sell the iPads to the outgoing council members, I think, for like $50.
Have we ever discussed maybe giving them?
We
Is that-
can't,
can't do
because
that,
there is
okay.
some low value
Okay,
to them, and you've also done that with
Yeah.
department heads who have been retired.
So you'll get us the exact value.
It's $50.
$50, okay. Well, I'll send that on.
And that
Anybody?
includes the charger.
Yeah.
and the cover?
Everybody okay with that? Everybody okay with that? And the second thing on is a grant agreement for the Colony Tower Building Reuse Program. I'm gonna turn that over to you, but that's very exciting.
Yes, the council has been working on this project. The town was awarded a $400,000 grant for Colony Tire's $3.2 million expansion. They've agreed to, or committed, promised, and they'll be on the hook to create 40 new jobs. And they also have to match the expenditure that they'll receive back, but they're more than tripling that. They're gonna spend $3.2 million. The state will remit $500,000 to the town, and then we'll remit it to Colony. They have to spend $500 before they'll get reimbursed from the town. And the owners will have to sign a promissory note, so if they don't create the jobs, they'll agree to pay back a pro rata share of the grant, as well as allow for the town to take a deed of trust on the property. But we have every confidence that they'll comply with all the conditions of the grant. So we're super excited.
That's
It's
great.
a big,
It really is.
big investment in Edenton.
So we'll send that on to full council unless anybody's got any problem with it. Thank Charlie and Andrew and Scott. You see them.
All right, thank you, sir. And with that, we have completed our agenda for tonight. So the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank y'all very much. Thank you for coming.